February 9th, 2004. A 21-year-old nursing student crashed her car on a snowy mountain road in New Hampshire, talked to a witness, and then disappeared in less than 7 minutes with no footprints in the snow, no blood, and no trace. How does someone just stop existing? Route 112 cuts through the White Mountains of New Hampshire like a dark ribbon. In February, the road is lonely. The trees stand tall and black against the snow. Houses are far apart. Cell phone signals do not reach here. On the night of February 9th, 2004, this quiet stretch of road became the last place anyone ever saw Maura Murray alive. At 7:27 in the evening, Faith Westman was in her home near Woodsville when she heard a loud thump. She looked out her window and saw a black car in the ditch. The front end was smashed. Both airbags had gone off. The windshield had a spider web crack on the driver's side. Faith picked up her phone and called 911. She told them a car had crashed. She said she could see someone moving around the vehicle. Bruce Atwood was driving his school bus home when he saw the same black Saturn in the ditch. He stopped. A young woman stood outside the car. She was shaking. Her dark hair fell around her face. Bruce asked if she was okay. The woman told him she was fine. She said she had already called AAA. Bruce knew this was not true. There was no cell service on this part of Route 112, but he did not argue. He told her he would call the police when he got home. Then he drove away. The time was about 7:35. When police arrived at 7:46, the woman was gone. The car sat empty in the ditch. Both doors were locked. The keys were missing. And inside, officers found college textbooks, a box of wine that smelled strong of alcohol, and bottles of vodka and Kahlua. They found her phone and some of her belongings. But Maura Murray had vanished. This is the story the police first believed. Maura was a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts. She was 21 years old. On the day she disappeared, she sent emails to her teachers. She said there had been a death in her family and she needed to leave for a week. But there was no death. No one in her family had died. At 3:15 that afternoon, she went to an ATM and took out $280. This was almost all the money she had. Then she bought alcohol at a liquor store and got in her car. She drove north into New Hampshire. No one knew where she was going. The police said Maura probably ran away. They said she was stressed. She had problems at school. Maybe she wanted to hurt herself. Maybe she just wanted to start over somewhere new. They said she must have walked away from the crash and gotten into someone's car. They said this was a girl who did not want to be found. But the facts did not match this story. Search dogs came the next day. One dog picked up Maura's scent at the crashed car. The dog followed the smell for exactly 100 yards down Route 112. Then the scent just stopped. The dog could not find it again. It was like Maura had simply stopped being there. Searchers walked for miles in every direction. Helicopters flew overhead. They covered nearly 20 miles of forest and road. The ground was covered in snow, but they found no footprints leading into the woods. They found no tracks at all. No one saw her walking. No one saw her get into another car. Fred Murray got a phone call early the next morning. His daughter was missing. He drove through the night from Connecticut to New Hampshire. When he arrived before dawn, he went straight to the police. He begged them to search for Maura. They told him they do not start searches late in the day. Fred stood in the cold morning air and could not understand. His daughter had been gone for hours already. Every minute mattered, but the search would not begin until 8 in the morning on February 11th. That was more than 36 hours after Maura vanished. Something else did not make sense. Earlier that day, Maura had made phone calls. At 12:55, she called a woman who owned a condo in the mountains. No rental was ever arranged. At 2:05, she called a tourism line in Vermont. The call lasted less than a minute. At 4:37, she called her own voicemail and listened for 4 minutes. Then she disappeared into the New Hampshire wilderness. But why? Why lie about a family death? Why take all her money? Why drive to nowhere? The last person to see Maura was Bruce Atwood. He said she seemed shaken up but not hurt. He saw no blood on her face. The crash had been at low speed. The car was damaged, but Maura appeared fine. Between 7:35 when Bruce left and 7:46 when police arrived, only 11 minutes passed. In those 11 minutes, Maura Murray disappeared from the face of the earth, and 21 years later, no one knows how. The timeline of February 9th, 2004 reads like a mystery novel, but every detail is real. Every minute is documented. At 12:55 in the afternoon, Maura called Linda Salamone. Linda owned a condo in Bartlett, New Hampshire. Maura asked about renting it, but the conversation went nowhere. No booking was made. 1 hour and 9 minutes later, at 2:05, Maura called a tourism information line in Stowe, Vermont. The call lasted less than 1 minute. The reservation line was down that day. At 3:15, security cameras at an ATM captured Maura withdrawing money. She took out $280. It was nearly everything in her account. 28 minutes later, at 3:43, she left a liquor store carrying bottles of vodka, Kahlua, Bailey's, and a 12-pack of drinks. At 4:37, she made her last phone call. She dialed her own voicemail and listened for 4 minutes. Then silence. At 7:27 that evening, Faith Westman called 911 to report a crashed car. 19 minutes later, police arrived at an empty scene. But what police found at that crash told a strange story. The Black Saturn had front-end damage. Both airbags had deployed. The windshield was cracked badly on the driver's side. Yet investigators could not figure out what Maura had hit. The damage did not match hitting a tree. The crash happened at low speed. Maura was probably not hurt. Inside the locked car, they found a box of wine on the back seat. The smell of alcohol filled the air. There were stains on the ceiling inside the car, but the stains were not blood. Police found a strange detail. A rag had been stuffed into the tailpipe of the car. No one knew why. The biggest question haunted investigators. Was Maura alone in that car? That they could not be sure. They could not prove she was the only person in the vehicle when it crashed. This single uncertainty opened up dozens of possibilities. Witnesses told different stories. Faith Westman first said she saw a man smoking a cigarette near the car. Later, she changed her story. She said she only saw a red glow. She was not sure it was a cigarette. She was not sure it was a man. 3 months after Maura disappeared, a construction worker was driving on Route 112. He said he saw a young person walking along the road. This was 4 or 5 miles from the crash site. The time was between 8 and 8:30 at night. He never came forward earlier. In June 2005, more than a year later, someone saw a blonde woman at a church in Barton, Vermont. The woman looked like Maura. When asked her name, she said it was Rachel. During the Father's Day sermon, she suddenly got up and left quickly. No one ever saw her again. Fred Murray fought the police from day one. He wanted them to search immediately. They refused. He wanted to see their investigation files. They said no. He took his fight all the way to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. The court denied his request. The files stayed sealed. Years later, the family asked to see Maura's car. Police keep it at their headquarters in Concord. The family was not allowed to view it. The car sat locked away with whatever secrets it held. One investigator did take the case seriously. His name was John Healy. He was not paid. He volunteered hundreds of hours of his time. Healy looked at the facts and saw something impossible. Maura was there, then she was not. In the time it takes to drive down the street, she vanished completely. Healy said it simply. She got into the wrong car or went to the wrong house. 1 minute she existed. 10 minutes later, she did not. He said they were 1 step away from thinking aliens took her. That is how fast it happened. Then came the voicemail. On February 11th, 2 days after Maura disappeared, her boyfriend got a call on his cell phone. He listened to the voicemail. He heard what sounded like a woman crying. He believed it was Maura sobbing. New Hampshire State Police traced the call. It came from a calling card. The card was issued to the American Red Cross. No one could explain how the Red Cross got his mobile number. No one could explain why they would leave a voicemail with just crying sounds. The boyfriend wanted to save that message, but somehow it got deleted, and the only possible proof that Maura was still alive disappeared just like she did. The search itself revealed more mysteries. Trained dogs covered the area. Helicopters flew patterns over the forest. Search teams walked nearly 20 miles in all directions from the crash site. The ground was covered in snow. Fresh snow shows every footprint, every track, every sign of movement. But searchers found nothing. No prints going into the woods, no marks in the snow. The tracking dog that followed her scent lost it after 100 feet. The trail went cold as if Maura had been lifted straight up into the air. Police rushed to close the case. They called it a voluntary disappearance. They said Maura ran away on purpose. She was upset. She was troubled. She left because she wanted to leave. But Fred Murray knew his daughter. He knew something terrible had happened on Route 112 that night. Someone took her. Someone who knew those dark mountain roads. Someone who saw a young woman alone and vulnerable and made her disappear forever. Before Maura Murray vanished, people trusted simple answers. Police said she ran away, and most people believed them. A stressed college girl drives into the mountains and starts a new life somewhere. It made sense. It was clean. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into years, doubt grew like ice in winter. By 2009, 5 years after that February night, the state no longer called it a runaway case. A senior official from the Attorney General's office said they did not know if Maura was a victim. But they were treating her disappearance as a possible murder. The media ignored Maura's case at first. The first newspaper article appeared 6 days after she vanished. 6 days of silence while the trail went cold. But then something changed. The story appeared on television shows. Programs like 2020 and Disappeared covered her case. In 2017, the Oxygen Network made a whole series about Maura Murray. They called it one of the first major crime mysteries to unfold in the early days of social media. The internet had given the case new life, but publicity brought new problems. Some people tried to discredit witnesses. They questioned Bruce Atwood's story. They said Faith Westman was confused about what she saw. Anonymous posters online accused Maura's family of hiding something. They said maybe her relatives knew more than they admitted. The family had to defend themselves against strangers who knew nothing about them. Two theories fought for attention. The official theory said Maura hitchhiked away from the crash. Maybe she got into a random car. Maybe she climbed onto a hay truck that was parked half a mile down the road. She left because she wanted to leave. The forbidden theory said something darker. Someone local grabbed her. Someone who knew those mountain roads in the dark. Someone who saw a vulnerable young woman and took his chance. Fred Murray believed this second theory with all his heart. He told reporters he thought some local dirtbag grabbed his daughter. Someone who knows the area took her and hid what he did. Documents from the case painted vivid pictures. A 9-page inventory listed everything found in Maura's car. College textbooks, a U2 cassette tape, sweatpants, shampoo, a travel toothbrush, a box of wine with a receipt showing she bought it that afternoon. These were the belongings of a real person. Not a mystery, not a story. A real 21-year-old woman who liked music and needed toothpaste. Bruce Atwood described Maura as shaking when he talked to her. She was shaken up, he said, but there was no blood on her face. She stood in the cold February darkness on Route 112. The temperature was dropping. Snow covered the ground. Houses were far apart. Trees towered black against the winter sky. The smell of alcohol hung in the air around her wrecked car. And she was alone. Or was she? Then came the knife. In late 2004, a man approached Fred Murray. The man said his brother lived less than 1 mile from where Maura crashed. He handed Fred a rusty, stained knife, and he said he believed his brother had used this knife to kill Maura Murray. Days after giving Fred the knife, the brother supposedly scrapped his Volvo car. He destroyed the vehicle completely. But then the story fell apart. The man's family said he made everything up. They said he was trying to get reward money. They said he had a history of using drugs and was not reliable. In 2013, 9 years after Maura disappeared, cadaver dogs went to an A-frame house. The house stood approximately 1 mile from the crash site. The dogs went crazy in a closet. They were trained to smell human remains. Their reaction was strong. In April 2019, investigators tore up the concrete basement floor of that house. They dug carefully. They searched for any sign of Maura. They found absolutely nothing, just a small piece that looked like old pottery. Maybe some old pipes. No body, no bones, no evidence. The dogs had detected something, but whatever it was gone. Witnesses started to recant or go silent. People who thought they saw Maura later said they were not sure. Others refused to talk anymore. The attention became too much. The internet sleuths became too aggressive. Information that should have helped solve the case got buried under arguments and accusations. One fact stood above all others as the most terrifying truth. A tracking dog followed Maura's scent for exactly 100 yards down Route 112. Then the scent vanished. Not faded, not mixed with other scents. Vanished. As if Maura Murray had been erased from existence at that precise spot on that cold mountain road. Logic said this was impossible. A person leaves traces, footprints, scent, something. But Maura left nothing at all. She was there, then she was not. And in between those two states, there was only darkness and 7 minutes of unexplained silence. The Maura Murray case remains open today. The New Hampshire Cold Case Unit keeps her file active. In 2024, 20 years after she vanished, the FBI released a new picture. They used age progression technology to show what Maura might look like at 41 years old. Her face was older in the image. Laugh lines around her eyes. But it was still her. The FBI said this was normal for missing person investigations. They said it was not based on any new information. They said their position on the case had not changed. Translation: they still had nothing. Maura's disappearance changed how missing persons cases work in New Hampshire. In 2009, 8 people who cared about unsolved cases pointed to Maura. They said New Hampshire needed a special unit just for cold cases. The state listened. They created the Cold Case Unit. Maura helped make that happen. Her case showed what happens when investigations move too slowly or not at all. Bruce Atwood died in 2009. He was the last person known to speak with Maura face to face. He took his memories of that night with him. Whatever he saw or did not see is gone now. We have only his words from before he passed away. He said Maura was shaking but not bleeding. He said she told him she called AAA. That is all we will ever know from him. Julie Murray became her sister's voice. Maura's family picked Julie to speak for them. She has given countless interviews over 20 years. In 2024, she said she never thought she would still be sitting there without answers 2 decades later. The pain in her voice was clear. But she keeps talking. She keeps Maura's name alive. She keeps pressure on investigators. The internet made things harder for the family in many ways. Online investigators accused Julie and her relatives of hiding the truth. They said maybe Maura was running from her family. They said maybe the Murrays were blocking the investigation somehow. None of this was true, but the accusations hurt anyway. Every year on the anniversary of Maura's disappearance, people hold a candlelight vigil at the crash site on Route 112. A blue ribbon tied to a tree marks the exact spot where her car went into the ditch. The ribbon has been replaced many times over 20 years. but it is always there. Route 112 became a place of pilgrimage for people who care about unsolved mysteries. Investigators still do not know why Maura lied about a family death. They do not know where she was really going that February afternoon. They do not know what damaged her windshield or whether she was alone in the car. They do not know how she vanished in minutes without leaving any footprints in fresh snow. 1 month after Maura disappeared, another young woman vanished in similar circumstances. Her name was Brianna Maitland. She was driving in Montgomery, Vermont, just 66 miles from where Maura crashed. Brianna's car was found backed into an abandoned building. Brianna was gone. Police said there was no connection between the two cases. 2 young women, 2 car crashes, 2 complete disappearances within weeks and miles of each other. But officially, just a coincidence. The chief of the New Hampshire Attorney General's Criminal Bureau still calls Maura's case a suspicious missing persons investigation. They keep all options open, he says. Over 5,000 people claim to have seen Maura in the months and years after she vanished. 5,000 alleged sightings. Not a single one was ever confirmed. Not one led anywhere real. Fred Murray never stopped searching. He said there is no letting go. His daughter would not want him to quit on her. She would want him to keep trying to find out who grabbed her. For 21 years, he searched. For 21 years, he got no answers. Just silence from the mountains and locked files from the police. Think about time for a moment. In 7 minutes, you can walk maybe half a mile if you move quickly. In 7 minutes, yet you can make a phone call or eat a snack. 7 minutes is almost nothing. But in 7 minutes on Route 112 in February 2004, Maura Murray ceased to exist. She talked to a bus driver. She stood by her wrecked car in the cold, and then she was gone. A tracking dog followed her scent for 100 yards. Then the scent stopped. As if she simply stopped being. We build our lives on the idea that people cannot just disappear. We believe in footprints and evidence and logic. We believe that if someone is gone, there must be a trail to follow. But what happens when there is no trail? What happens when a person is there one moment and gone the next with nothing in between? What happens when all the dogs and helicopters and search teams find absolutely nothing? Maura Murray's case asks us to accept something our minds reject. That sometimes people vanish and we never know how or why. That sometimes the answers do not exist. That sometimes the darkness of a February night on a lonely mountain road swallows someone whole and never gives them back. 21 years of searching, 21 years of questions, and still the snow on Route 112 holds no footprints. Still, the forest reveals no secrets. Still, Maura Murray is gone. And we are left standing where her scent ended, staring into nothing, wondering how a person can just stop existing in the space of 7 minutes on a cold winter night.